It was 6:45 a.m. on a crisp October morning in 2026, and I, Marcus Reynolds, was staring down the barrel of a life-changing day in the sleepy suburb of Willow Creek, Oregon. I'd been out of work for 3 months after the auto shop I'd managed for a decade shuttered, and this 8 a.m. job interview was my last shot at keeping my modest ranch house and, more importantly, custody of my 9-year-old daughter, Lily. I'd sunk my last $18,000 every penny from selling my late father's vintage Chevy into a used Toyota Camry the day before, desperate for reliable wheels to make this interview across town. Time was tight, traffic was brutal, and the pressure was suffocating. The last thing I needed was a showdown with Cynthia Hargrove, the neighborhood's self-appointed HOA dictator who'd been making my life hell for nearly a year. But as I opened my garage door, there she was, charging across my lawn like a runaway freight train, screaming that I'd stolen her car. Cynthia, a wiry woman in her late 40s with a peroxide blonde bob that looked suspiciously like a wig, was clutching a clipboard like it was her lifeline to authority. "That's my Toyota," she shrieked, planting herself between me and my car in a neon green tracksuit that screamed discount rack. Her fake nails clicked furiously as she waved a piece of paper she claimed was a receipt for my car, bought 3 weeks ago from a place called Sunset Motors. For a split second, my stomach dropped. The receipt looked real, same make, model, color, everything. But I'd bought my Camry from reliable Ron's Auto Lot, clear across Willow Creek, with every document in order: title, registration, insurance. Either this was the wildest coincidence in automotive history, or Cynthia was full of it. Given her track record of slapping me with 15 HOA citations for nonsense like unauthorized fence height or excessive mailbox tilt, I was betting on the latter. This wasn't just another Tuesday for Cynthia. She'd been stalking my house for days, parked in her dented Hyundai across the street, jotting notes like she was auditioning for a spy movie. I'd ignored it, chalking it up to her usual obsession with control, but this morning she'd gone from nosy to nuclear. "Thief," she bellowed, her voice hitting octaves that could shatter glass, as she dialed 911 and launched into a performance that would have made Broadway jealous. "Police, my neighbor stole my car. He's a dangerous criminal." Her mascara was already smearing, one fake eyelash dangling like a wounded moth, and that bob was sliding sideways, revealing gray roots. I stood there in my pressed interview suit, briefcase in hand, wondering if I'd slipped into a fever dream where HOA presidents could accuse you of grand larceny before you'd had your coffee. The clock was ticking 7:00 a.m., an hour to make a 40-minute drive through morning traffic. Every second I spent dealing with Cynthia's meltdown was a nail in the coffin of my future. I tried showing her my paperwork, explaining I'd bought the car legally, but she swatted the documents from my hand, screaming about forgeries and professional crime syndicates. My title and registration scattered across the driveway, and she stomped on them with her knockoff stilettos, wobbling like a toddler on ice. Neighbors started poking their heads out. Mrs. Eleanor Parker, a sharp-tongued retiree in a floral robe, shuffled onto her porch, squinting at the chaos. "What's all this noise, Cynthia?" she called. Then came Nathan Brooks, the neighborhood's risk-averse accountant, still in flannel pajamas, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Cynthia, sensing an audience, cranked her victim act to 11. "Thank God you're here. This man stole my car," she wailed, waving her Sunset Motors receipt like it was a sacred relic. That receipt was trouble. It matched my car to a 2018 Toyota Camry, silver, fully loaded. For a moment, I wondered if I'd somehow bought a stolen vehicle. But Cynthia's desperation gave her away. Her eyes burned with a conviction that wasn't just anger, it was obsession. She genuinely believed I'd taken something that was hers, and that made her dangerous. Nathan, ever the cautious type, started asking questions. "Cynthia, when did you buy this car? Why haven't we seen it?" Eleanor chimed in. "I've lived here 25 years, and I've never seen you drive anything but that Hyundai." Cynthia's answers got vaguer, her voice shriller. "It's a complex transaction. You wouldn't understand," she snapped, her fake nails clicking like castanets. Then her husband, Gerald Hargrove, pulled up in his Hyundai, looking like a man who'd rather be on Mars. Cynthia called about a stolen car. He mumbled, clutching a briefcase and wearing mismatched slippers. "But we don't own a Toyota. Just this." His confusion was palpable, and when Cynthia claimed she'd bought the car as a surprise with inheritance money, Gerald's face crumpled. "Cynthia, your uncle left us $150 2 years ago, and we're broke from your pyramid schemes," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The neighbors exchanged looks. Cynthia's story was unraveling, and her wig was now a full 45 degrees off-center. Officer Daniel Carter arrived, his patrol car lights cutting through the morning fog. He recognized Cynthia immediately. "Mrs. Hargrove, this is your 7th call this month," he said, his tone a mix of patience and exhaustion. Cynthia launched into her saga, pointing at me like I'd robbed a bank. "He stole my car. I have proof." She thrust her receipt at him, but I handed over my own paperwork clean, legitimate, and verified by reliable Ron himself when Officer Carter called. Sunset Motors, though? The number was disconnected, and a quick database check revealed the dealership had been shut down weeks ago for fraud, its owner on the run with $250,000 in customer deposits. Cynthia's face went from fake tan to ashen in seconds. Instead of backing down, she doubled down, screaming that I was part of the scam, that Sunset Motors had delivered her car to the wrong address. Her hysteria was a spectacle, mascara streaking, wig sliding, purse swinging like a wrecking ball. Gerald, meanwhile, looked like he was piecing something together. "Cynthia, you were obsessed with that Sunset Motors story on the news," he said, his voice shaking. "You kept talking about those poor victims." Her eyes widened in panic, and she shot him a glare that could have melted steel. Whatever Gerald knew about that dealership, she didn't want it out. Then Eleanor dropped a bomb. "Officer, you need to see my security footage," she said, brandishing a tablet. The videos were damning. Cynthia parked outside my house at midnight, snapping photos. Cynthia creeping to my garage at 3 a.m. with a flashlight and what looked like lock-picking tools. Cynthia rifling through my trash at dawn, photographing my mail. "She's been stalking Marcus for weeks," Eleanor said, her voice dripping with disdain. The footage showed Cynthia trying to break into my garage, fumbling for 15 minutes before slinking away. The crowd, now a dozen neighbors, gasped. Nathan, who'd initially backed Cynthia, looked sick. "This is harassment," he said, shaking his head. Cynthia's response was pure chaos. She lunged for Eleanor's tablet, screaming, "That's private property." Officer Carter restrained her as she flailed, her remaining eyelash fluttering to the ground. Eleanor, unfazed, called an emergency HOA meeting right there in my driveway, using a ceramic squirrel as a gavel. Neighbors poured out of their homes, and in minutes, Cynthia was voted out as HOA president, 14-0. The stories came flooding in. Cynthia had reported a family for suspicious loitering because their kids played basketball. She tried to find a veteran for an unapproved ramp he needed to get into his house. Her reign of terror was over, and when Gerald pulled out divorce papers, announcing he'd file that day, Cynthia's world collapsed. Handcuffed, wigless, and mascara-streaked, she tried to key my car, scratching the driveway instead. "You're looking at vandalism charges now," Officer Carter said, reading her rights as she shrieked about neighborhood standards. But the real chill came as they loaded her into the patrol car. Cynthia turned to me with a smile so cold it stopped my heart, mouthing something that made Officer Carter radio for a detective. Later, I learned she'd threatened to make sure Lily never feels safe, with details about her school schedule. That turned her misdemeanor into felony stalking and criminal threatening. She spent the weekend in jail, abandoned by Gerald, who'd frozen their accounts. The neighborhood transformed overnight. Eleanor organized a block party, complete with a squirrel-shaped cake and shredded HOA citations as confetti. Cynthia's victims shared horror stories, from stolen packages to false CPS reports. At her court hearing, the judge reviewed the footage and her threats, setting bail at $6,000 she couldn't pay. She pleaded guilty to avoid a trial, getting $2,500 in fines, 120 hours of community service picking up trash, and a restraining order banning her from my property, clipboards, or any HOA role for 7 years. Gerald's divorce left her with nothing but her knockoff purses and that tragic bob, and she moved into a dingy apartment above a vape shop. My life. It turned around. The company rescheduled my interview after seeing the news, and the CEO, impressed by my composure, offered me a manager role with a 25% higher salary and a car allowance. Eleanor became HOA president, reversing Cynthia's fines and turning our street into a true community. Kids played freely, and block parties became routine. 6 months later, I spotted Cynthia at a discount grocery, scanning my items with that same icy stare. She'd taken the job to track me, violating her restraining order. Mrs. Parker's new cameras caught her driving by my house weekly, and when she showed up at Lily's school with a fake badge, claiming to audit safety, she was arrested again. Felony charges impersonating an official, stalking, harassment landed her 20 months in jail and 5 years of probation with mandatory therapy. Willow Creek is now a haven. Eleanor's squirrel-themed YouTube channel went viral, Lily's thriving, and I bought my house outright, free from HOA control. Cynthia? She moved to Idaho, working retail, her dreams of power reduced to a name tag. Her obsession cost her everything: marriage, home, dignity, while we built something better. Sometimes, justice is watching someone destroy themselves while you rise. What do you think? Was Cynthia a victim of her own delusions? Or did the neighborhood push her too far? Should I have pressed harder for justice? Or was her public downfall enough? Drop a comment, hit like, and subscribe. Where are you watching from? And what's your craziest neighbor story?